republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I was asked to call this meeting to discuss local income tax and food and beverage tax. So, somebody want to start? I'm not sure where we're at.
Okay, I guess I'll start. I'm kind of the one that wants this thing to do, but we're trying to figure out how not to put the food and beverage tax on. And we need to come up with some kind of solution not to do that. We talked about lowering this, if we did, lowering the special purpose tax, which I guess we cannot lower. And I didn't know whether we could use some interest off our investments to make up for the food and beverage tax, or if anybody had any other ideas. I know Edit's been brought up. We can get some borrowing from Edit.
Why can't we lower the special purpose tax?
It's won't stand it. Doesn't mean that we can't.
I just talked to Ruben and I just got an email from him kind of said not.
Okay.
He said, what he said?
We have, I mean, he said that we did a, like, what the lowest increment could be. I was hoping he would be here, but he said nobody told him this meeting was going on. That if he lowered the special purpose tax by 0.5%, I was asking him what would make the difference, like on the average cost of what the food and beverage cost would cost a household compared to what lowering the special purpose tax would cost. And if we lowered the special purpose tax by 0.5%, he said that would be about a $36 savings per year per household, which we were told food and beverage tax would cost an average household of $41 per year. I'm not saying this is the way to go. I'm just running the numbers.
Yeah.
So that's what Ruben said. I just got the email from him, is what I was reading when I sat down here. So I don't think that we can't. I'm not saying we should, but I don't think that it's a matter of can't.
What's the revenue from the jail special purpose tax?
Pardon?
What's the revenue for the
It's
year?
about,
Jail special?
it brings in $4,619 a year. We use $3,961,000.
Where does this, if you were to lower it, where does that put us in the ability to pay it off early?
Well, it's still gonna bring in, he called me yesterday too, Ruben did, and he said if you lowered it by 500, which is at 0.65, be down to 0.67, it would lower it about $350,000, maybe a little bit more than that, about 350. He said that would still leave us a surplus of where we wanted to be to pay it off early. Still leaves a surplus if no layoffs, because it's an income tax, without any layoffs and things like that. He said it'd still bring in about $500,000 to $600,000 excess a year.
And the bond payment's about 1.6 million a year.
I got a sheet down there.
1.5.
Yeah.
And the expected, so we're running $2.3 million for the operating cost out of that.
Something like that. Yeah, pretty close. I think it's, of course, it can be used for the payment, operations, maintenance, and things
But the
like
payment's 1.6, so the rest of that's about 2.3.
Right.
So we'll be carrying that forward for.
Yeah, that's, well, we'd like to. I mean, that's kind of takes a relief off the county general things. Because
I think we still can lower it, that 0.5%, and still pay it off early.
he told me, he said it wouldn't hurt you.
What's the 10-year payoff? The 10-year payoff for the building?
Katie, while she's looking at that, what did you say the revenue was?
4.6919.
And if you lowered it 0.5%, it's around 350,000.
I don't know.
We started payments in 2020.
July.
So in July of 2023, the remaining balance would be $10,045.
You got an amortization down there, don't you, Jimmy?
Yeah.
So he's looking-
Yeah. And
The
our
plan
interest-
was to try to have it paid off in 15 years and bring that tax down to operations only. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And it puts some relief on the taxpayers. You're paying it up front a little bit, but in the end, you're gonna get it back.
Our interest per year after year 10 drops down to like 178, 168, 158 year by year after that.
After year 10.
Yeah. The interest and then on the backside it gets less. And we're sitting with 8.6 in the fund. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's about right. Last month, 7.7. That's taken out.
Yeah, almost 6.
8.6, 1.7.
Mhm.
The last schedule I got from you guys.
Okay.
How do you like those?
It's this. This here.
That excess funding too is invested drawing interest too, right?
Yes,
So we're at 8.9 then.
there's 3 million out of drawn
That
interest.
interest would be added to it at the
Right,
10-year
that's
mark,
right.
put that on the
Right.
balance. So the amortization is if we don't do anything,
Yeah.
so.
So we're actually sitting at 8.9 million in the fund. And we still got revenue coming in every month.
384,000 something a month.
So if we get all the taxes we're expected to, this year will be covered by what comes in. We're sitting at almost 9 million surplus over the budget year with expected revenues covered this year.
Right. Except that I still recommend, suggest you keep a year's worth of bond payments. You don't even think about that being in there.
Trying to figure out in my head, we're at what, year 4? So how much surplus do we have or need every year to get to the payoff of debt? We're already sitting at 9 million. We need 10.7 million or whatever for payoff in year 2030. So we only need 1.8-ish million dollars to reach that number. Plus we want, we recommended $3 million surplus to cover a year we have tax issues. So at the year 2030, we want our surplus to be 14 million. And we're at 9 now.
Or, yes, just rough numbers.
So we're trying to figure out how to make sure that we have an additional $5 million surplus between now and 2030. So that we can pay it off at 10 and carry 1 year's worth of budget. But our budget really by then will be 2.3 million.
Or more, I don't know what it's going to
Depending on
be.
what the operating
But
cost.
it's the 11th year.
Yes.
They get, the bond holders get 10 years worth of guaranteed interest.
And what's our surplus now, revenue versus expenses projected?
I don't know.
Was it just over 4 million?
4.6.
4.6, a little over.
And we're spending 3.9, 4.7
$700,000 surplus.
for 6 years. So that gets us to the 11-year payoff, that's no more.
That's 4.2. That's $4.2 million surplus with no additional increase in operating expenses or repairs or anything like that over at the jail. I mean, that's right at the number that we need to have at the end of the day.
So if
And
we're gonna pay it off.
that's also no drop in revenue.
Yes.
Right, because in 18, it was 3 million, and then in 2019, it went down to 2.9 million.
Yeah.
Then it went back up, but again,
Yeah.
it can fluctuate.
So if we're going to pay it off in 10/11, we really can't reduce it.
I
We
mean,
was planning on 15.
15 years.
That was when we put this on. It was to get it paid off in 15 years instead of 11. It's a 20-year bond.
What's the payoff at
'Cause you can't make an extra payment till after the 10th year. So the 11th year is when you can make extra payments on it.
2035?
I thought the discussion had always been that as soon as we could pay that bond off, we would. that we weren't going to be waiting. I mean, that we weren't going to be waiting until the 15th year, that as soon as we could pay it off, we were going to.
After the 10th year.
Yes. That we weren't
Yeah,
waiting
yeah,
until
we-
year 15.
Well,
We forecasted for 15 when we put all this on. I know we wasn't around whenever the
Right.
commissioners and the
Yeah.
council, but that was, I think Mark was on there and Kenny was on there.
And that's the
That was
discussion.
our forecast was to be at least by 15 years.
Payoff in 2035 is only $3.6 million. We don't need to continue to save, and we have more than what we need to pay it off now.
exactly.
It's just a matter of what the council's goal is for that payoff, whether it's 10 or 15. It's 2035, payoff's 3.65 million. But at that point, you're only saving, and I say only, $200,000 to pay it off early. That's all you save on your amortization based off the interest schedule.
So what you said we dropped at 0.5%, what's the 300,000 probably what would?
About 350 is what Ruben thought it would be around. 350,000.
Right now, the way things are set, we're getting anywhere between 700,000 to 800,000 additional a year surplus. We take 3 out of that, that puts us at 4. We've got $9 million sitting there right now to put on the payment when the 10th year comes. And we're only in year 4, so we have 6 more years.
Well, we still have that 3 million, right, at the end.
We've got 3 million invested. Ending balance right now without the investments is, according to this sheet, 5.6 million.
That's all we have surplus.
That's without, that's just with expenditures been out there this year, 300,000. And we're expecting to take another 3 million out, throw 4 million out of there, close to it.
I mean, my memory is correct that we said that when we implemented that tax, that we would take all the surplus that we made, put it back, and then when the 10th year came where we could pay off on the balance, we would take all that money, put it on the balance and see where we were at balance-wise. And then we were gonna lower the tax down to where to whatever it would need to be to pay the rest of that off to the 15th year, is the way I understand we were gonna do it. So if we're drawing surplus right now, we drop it 0.5%, that's $300,000 out of it. We're still got a pretty substantial amount of money at year 4 that is gonna get put on that. So we got 6 more years to collect that additional. If we did that, it would lower the tax, obviously, but it would also keep us in a safe zone where if our income went down like it did a year ago, we still would be okay. If it maintained as it is, then we're still gonna be okay. So I wouldn't have a problem at all dropping it at 0.5%. Just, I mean, we promised the taxpayers we were gonna drop that whenever we were able to do it.
I mean, Bill discussed that 2 or 3 times last year.
The numbers all look okay. I mean, it's not gonna have an adverse effect on us.
So dropping it from 2.65 to 2.15 or from 2.65 to 2.60?
It'd be 0.65 to 0.60.
But you're not dropping 0.5%, it's 0.5.
Well,
500.
Yeah.
500. Let's put it down to 500.
Sorry, when you say 0.5%, I'm thinking decimal 5.
Yeah, no,
No, it'd be 500.
500.
0.05.
Go from 0.065 to 0.00.
So we need a motion on that.
Well, do we need to do it? Can we have to wait until the 19th?
Got to do that council meeting.
Well, this is a
This is a,
special purpose jail tax. This isn't the food and beverage tax. Because you postponed that till March 19th. Yes, that's, as far as I know, I don't know that you have to do any advertising or public hearings. That would be a really good question.
was gonna say, do we have, yeah, can we do it at any time of the year? I don't know that.
I think it has to be done before, does that be done before October, Jane?
It's supposed to be done before October in order for it to go into effect the following year. But if you do it before May something, I think it can go into effect sometime in summer.
So it takes effect in July then,
I'm
In the
not sure on
States.
that, but we can check.
because the state's year starts in July. So.
Sheriff, do you have any thoughts on conversation?
Well, my thoughts are obviously down the road, the maintenance and operational costs, once it's paid off, because at some point it's gonna need a new roof down the road. I'd like to have some money put back for operational costs like that. Excuse me.
And once it's paid off, we're still gonna keep the tax, it's just gonna be
Lower, yeah.
lowered down.
Lower down to where it's maintenance and operations.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're taking care of what needs to be done at the jail.
Right.
By that time, you know, there has to be, if your costs go up, just what we're gonna leave in there after that's done.
I think if we lower one, I don't think you have to have public hearing or anything, but if you raise one, you do, correct?
I do not know that.
I can check, we can do it
Next
at the
meeting.
next meeting, I mean, that's fine, I'll check, make sure it doesn't have to be advertised or any public hearing or anything on it. Okay. Now, discussion on the food and beverage tax.
Well, my opinion on that still stands from the last meeting, that if we can hang on to the food and beverage tax, just put it in a holding pattern, I think we should do that for a couple of reasons. One reason is, that if we drop it, we're not ever gonna get it back. I think at some point in time, it may have a use. If it's for the fairgrounds and the pool, I'm not in favor of using it for the pool, but I am in favor of using it for the fairgrounds if we need to. Fairgrounds needs a fair amount of work done to it. I think that the fairgrounds could be renovated, create a environment out there where we could have year-round activities, drawing people to Decatur County, which would bring, you know, revenue in for the hotels and the restaurants and everything else, which that would be a better investment of our monies versus, I'm not saying the pool's not a good investment, but as far as a year-round purpose, I think that's where the money ought to go. But yeah, I know we had a discussion about Robert's rules, and we've all been kind of trying to figure that thing out. And what I understand is if we hadn't adopted Robert's rules as the way we run our meetings in an official capacity, then we can do what we want. Even though we're using Robert's rules just kind of as a guideline to run a meeting. I couldn't find anywhere where it stated that Robert's rules had any real authority on meetings. Did anybody find anything different than that?
No,
I mean, I know there's.
I called and asked our attorney, and he stated that it's the process for running the meeting, we're not bound by them as commissioners.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I found it too. So I'll go back to my original statement about, I think we should table the food and beverage tax indefinitely. At least we have it. We don't have to use it. We got till 2045 before it runs out. So get the pool project done, and we get looking at the fairgrounds, because right now we don't really have a plan for that, but we get looking at the fairgrounds and say, we really need to do this, this, and this, it's gonna cost.
But we do have a plan, and we have action in motion. The Ready 2.0 is already addressing the fairgrounds. We have to fund that if it comes through. And there's been a fairground study paid for, completed, and a committee that's been on it several times, talking about potential stuff at the fairgrounds.
Where is all that?
Well, there were meetings that were held, public meetings that were held for the Rating 2.0, in which there was a discussion about building a new community center out there, about covered bleachers. I think there was one more. Mark, am I forgetting one? One more topic?
The equine center.
Yes. And so the ask was up to $2 million. And so we would have to be able to fund the county side of that match. I think those are quality projects that could really benefit the community. And as far as the fairground study that was done, that was one of the committees that I was on when I first came on as commissioner last year, in which we'd had drawings laid out for how we could have and direct future expansion for the fairgrounds so that it could be best used, not just as a fairgrounds, but as a community event location to control or direct pedestrian traffic through the area, to control and direct vehicular traffic through the area. And so the actual diagrams, the drawings that we've done, this is all part of the same process where we had the drawings. Now we're having Ready 2.0 for, renovating the fairgrounds. That process has started.
Okay.
We
Well,
paid for that study with ARPA funds.
I know we did, and I asked, to get some information on that. All I got was an aerial photograph of the fairgrounds. That was all I got.
We've had 3 public meetings on it.
I know you have, but if you haven't been able to come to a public meeting, there ought to be someplace where you can go that has all that information, drawings and everything on it. Is there somewhere?
I agree with you. There should be a committee between the council and the commissioners where every one of these projects are being discussed.
So going back to my original statement was, I think that, but having known when we need to do those projects at the fairgrounds, I think that this food and beverage tax could possibly be a good fit for those projects, because that's a year-round use of the facility. It makes more sense to invest it there than it does to invest it in the pool.
So we are going to talk about lowering a tax just to add the food and beverage tax, which is going to go to the restaurants.
We're not adding the food and beverage tax today. I don't think we need to do that today.
No, but that's what we're going with.
No, I'm not saying we do it. I'm saying we have the ability.
Huh?
collect it and hand it over.
Yeah,
What I'm saying is that I'm not saying we're going to use the food and beverage tax for the fairgrounds. I'm saying we need to leave it set there in case that is a viable option. If it's not, then it's not.
According to what I read, you can postpone it indefinitely.
Because if we come to the point where, say we do need $2 million to renovate the fairgrounds, let's look and see if we have the money to do it before we do a food and beverage tax.
The guidelines I
So,
see.
I mean, that's not something we gotta do today. We got time to work on that.
But we can't really vote on anything until the 19th anyway, because
So,
we had to postpone till the 19th.
so having said that, I think we need to try to hold on to that food and beverage tax, just have it sitting there in case we really think there's use for it. I'm not gonna say that I think we ought to invoke it to do the fairgrounds. I'm saying that the process it took to get it, it may have a viable option, it may not. But why would we want to drop it permanently if we might see that it may be a good fit? If it's not, then we drop it. I'm not saying we need to hang on to it, we need to do it. I'm saying that it needs to sit there in case we do need to use it for something.
And it's my understanding that we're very unique to have that opportunity to
To
do
be-
that.
there's
Most
no-
counties
no
have a deadline that they have to.
Deadline
implement, but we
to,
did
that
not
we
get
have to
those
use
that
it,
deadline.
so.
Now, if that's the case, we need to figure out what we're gonna do about the 3 million matching money. Has to be, supposed to be spent on the pool, right, or the fairgrounds.
The $3 million, I think, is designated for the pool.
Yes.
So we said, we wanted to do 4, and they said 5 to 6, and we said 5 to 6. I mean, we've got $2.5 million sitting in edit funds that we could take some of that. We've got rainy day funds that the council has, we could take some of that. I mean, we have revenues that we could pay cash for the pool.
So how do we pay for improvements to the annex, the $1 million or so that we have at the highway garage still to pay for? There's capital improvements outside of that pool that have to pay for that are either gonna have to come out of food cap or edit. But that's, again, back to the conversation of all of the projects that are being discussed need to be discussed at one time. We can't talk about the pool in itself and then figure out the rest of it later. There's multiple projects. that need to
Well, you
be
can't
done.
put all these projects in one big pile and say, we gotta raise $15 million to pay for all this stuff.
But we have to prioritize that. We don't have one pool of money, it's gotta come out of the same pool.
I mean, the biggest concern right now I have about trying to take money for the pool out of edit is that's probably the best source. I mean, Janet or Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have to do something at the annex, that in my mind is the best location for where we pay for those funds. I mean, at what was it, 2 meetings ago, we had pictures of the facade of the annex having holes in it as a result of the flooding off the roof and the water running down inside the walls. We have water that is pooling on the roof. We have HVAC that is approaching like 40 years old, and we have single pane windows. This is a building that is crucial to our local government that we have to maintain, because where else are we going to put these departments? And so for me, taking money from edit to pay for a pool when we have necessities is a problem, because the annex and maintaining that building is a necessity.
The animal shelter is in similar condition. We either have to reduce the inflow to the shelter, or we have to find some place for them to put them. And we have to have an answer for that too. They're all projects that need to be discussed, so we can figure out how to pay them out of the pool of money that we have. There's no more money.
Well, I agree, the annex and stuff needs to be worked on, but I've never seen a plan on what you want to do.
We had plans, and that was when we had separated from Verigy.
I know, but I know there was 10 to 20% had in there for them to make money.
Just because we don't have a current plan doesn't mean no budget for it. We know that we're going to do it. We have to
But
put
you
down
need
the
a
table
budget
the
for
budget.
it, you got a plan and you know how much you need to spend, I'm going back.
Verigy was at 2.3 million, so
We
we'll
can
call
call
that the budget. That didn't include a roof or any parking upgrades. That parking lot hasn't been seal coated in 20 years. It's not sufficient for the amount of people we
But
have.
their plan wasn't broke down though, Tony, is what I'm talking about. You didn't,
All big.
I mean, that was just one. I mean, how much does it cost to put new windows in? I mean, what would that cost? That would be the first thing, is new windows.
But do we do all of the work? Yet again, do we do all of this work to come up with a plan and there is no money? Or do we set the money aside, have a budget 5 to 10 years out, and then build to that? If I'm going to buy a car, if I'm going to work on a car, if I'm going to do all that, I budget my money, make sure I can get it, and then I work to that. I sit down every month, put all my bills on the table and see how much money I have, and then I decide what I can do from there. I don't decide what I can do and then figure out the money.
I have a question. I'm not sure how formal this is, if you gotta get called on. Are we doing the same thing for the pool project that you're requiring these guys to do to maintain buildings we already have in place? As in, get a plan and a detailed plan as to how much this thing costs, or we still just have this $5 million pool?
That's what we're
The
asking.
reason I'm asking about the pool is because I went ahead and took it upon myself to call an architect licensed in 11 states that has designed municipal pools to see what is the cost of the design work, what is the majority cost of the pool, how does that break down? The majority cost is in concrete. As I talked to some of the guys, 8,000 square foot pool, for example, even if you considered a 10-foot tall wall, a foot deck reinforced, including the footing, I called concrete contractors, which is the same people that any GC is gonna call. And that comes out to about $150 a lineal foot. 80 by 100 is 360 lineal foot. That's about 54,000 in your concrete. You got a 6-inch floor. If you put 6 inches in it, at $10 a square foot, at 8,000 square feet, that's $80,000. Where's the other? It's not in pumps and pipe. You don't get millions in pumps and pipe. I just want to see a detailed list of what it costs to build a pool.
Me too.
Well, I think that's where we're at right now, Jeff. I think.
Well, I've not seen anything.
Well, we haven't yet either, but I
Here,
think-
we need $5 million.
I think
And I'm
that,
trying to figure out, why do we need $5 million?
well, we kept pressing us for a number, so we gave a number,
But you guys are arguing, but this guy's saying, we gave you a number, and you guys are going back and forth over telling him he's gotta have a detailed plan about how much are windows, but yet over here, we just give you $5 million.
no, we haven't done that yet.
No, I'm saying,
Yeah.
hypothetically, you're just saying, you're alluding, we need $5 million. And that doesn't, none of this is making any sense to me. I've been building for over 30 years. I've poured, as this man sitting next to you, hundreds of thousands of yards of concrete, he has, no doubt. I'm not sure where the cost is in this. How are we arriving at this number based on whose input? And, you know, I really, government in general, we owe 30 whatever trillion dollars for a reason. It's frivolous spending and stuff we can't afford. That doesn't mean we have to follow suit.
I'm with you on that. I've done the same thing, research.
What did you come up with? Any work in my office?
Nowhere near $4 million.
The architect specified and told me this is the majority of the cost.
I think we got the wrong people putting the numbers together on this. I don't know who signed this RL Turner up or whatever, but I think we need to get some true figures on what something would cost. Decide how much square feet of water we want, how much deck we want.
I only use the
Swim
number.
lanes, zero interest,
8,000
and get a true bid or a true offer with design, costs all built in, so we know what the final number is. Maybe get 2 or 3 companies, present numbers, and we got something to look at. That's right.
100%. That should be.
Then we got an idea of how much money we have to come up with.
Right. I mean, you're going on and on about, I mean, I get you guys have a tremendous job.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I mean, we're not building a bridge over a river, we're not building a skyscraper, it's a hole in the ground with a liner and a filtration system.
Well, we'll have a liner, it's concrete.
Please,
If it doesn't have a liner, it'll be
It would
concrete.
be a liquid rubber liner.
some type of liner, I'm sure.
Some surface that is skin coated over the concrete for water sealing. I get all that. That's what it is.
So the way the pool process started was they paid a conceptual design company, so it was less, do a concept, and a concept drawing with the amenities they thought they wanted, and then they estimated the costs. And that varied between 6 and 9.5 million. So we went to concept and we went to drawings on the cheapest way we could to present an idea of what it could cost, and then try to find a way to fund that. From that, that's a conceptual design, and that was given to council 2 or 3 months ago. From that, then we're trying to make sure we have the money. So that was given to ARPA and READY. That design process, those cost estimates were all presented to the READY 1.0 process, and they awarded us $1.5 million for that. Then it went to ARPA, and ARPA matched that. So we came up with 3, knowing that we were between 6 and 9 million. And this was prior to my arrival with the commission, right? So once we were at 3, then it was how do we come up with the rest of it? That's when the food and beverage tax
I guess
idea
my
came up.
point is, do we need more?
Teresa.
Based on my,
Teresa,
you know,
first of all,
conversation with the architects, I don't see, I'm not seeing that.
So we
let's
got
let
to-
Teresa talk. She's the head of the Parks and Rec.
Let me finish real quick.
Okay.
So we got to that point, we started the food and beverage conversation. We talked to council, they gave us the 5 to 6 million range that they could fund. So then we took an additional $15,000 now from Parks and Rec, that will pay HWC to design the pool, so we can get detailed cost estimate, just like we're asking. So that's where we're at. That was the whole process. Conceptual design was a breakdown, so we knew about what it would cost for the least amount of taxpayer dollars as possible to see if it was affordable. Then we went to finding monies and presentations. Then we went to we're shortfall on budget. Then we asked for a budget from that, and now we're to spending more taxpayer dollar for the design. So that's kind of where how the 2-year process has gone through the process.
And I understand that fully. Again, I've been in the construction business for a long time. And there are, at any given time, plenty of people to offer ideas, and when people are, a lot of times they're paid on percentages of completed cost, you know. Obviously, their goal is to have it as high as possible. Everybody, I don't think it's any news to anybody that anytime there's a government project, it's overpriced. All I'm saying is, don't go down that road, find out what it actually costs. And if it's a project manager that needs to be hired instead of a GC, you can do that. There's companies that will provide engineers to oversee the construction of it. I mean, I can imagine that you couldn't hire somebody for 3 months to build a thing, that it would cost you more than $100,000, you'd save a fortune, and they'd be tickled to get $100,000 for 3 months. I'm just, there's a lot of things out there that are not adding up to the cost that are insinuated by someone else's opinion. That's all.
Well, once we get the next step, anybody has more questions, Teresa?
I think what we need to understand is we're not talking about a rectangle body of water, just a concrete rectangle body of water. It would not have a liner in it. The liner's in the current Allen Memorial Pool for a reason. It's because the concrete substructure deteriorated, required a liner to increase the years of use for the pool. But we are also talking, and yes, I'm not aware of what it costs to do all the concrete quotes that he just did, and I'm sure that's, he knows more about that than I do. But we're also talking about amenities. You have to have something to draw people to this pool. If you're going to put in a body of water that's a rectangle pool that people are envisioning in their backyards or whatever, you're not going to draw the people that we're trying to bring back to the pool. We have it for a water slide, so we obviously don't want to go without diving boards and water slides. If we do something less, it's not going to draw. People are still going to go out of the county. They're going to go to other amenities where their families can all do something together. As far as cost, you have cost in every piece that you put in, whether we do zero entry, whether we do a water playground inclusion area, those create more things that have to be done in the pool. It's not just vision as a body of water anymore. We have to have a whole new chemical building. We are hoping to reuse our bathhouse. We should be able to use our bathhouse. It's been, done far after the Allen Memorial Pool was built. It will require renovation, but we have no chemical area in our bathhouse like some new pool construction is usually all put in one big building. So we will have to have a new building, all new chlorination systems. Ours are older. They're not all 60 years old. We have updated the chlorination system over the years, but there's things that will have to be done. Everything has to be done to code. Everything has, it's to just look at the project as a body of water, put a hole in the ground and make a pool. That's not reasonable about what we're going to have. And if we're going to build it, then we need to make sure that we do it in a way that it provides what this community needs and wants and deserves for years to come. I mean, obviously, my kids are all grown, but I have grandkids that would love to see a new pool or new ideas, new fun things to do that we can do as a family here and not travel.
How many cost estimates would you say that we have seen for community pools in the past 2 years?
Well, the most recent ones that we displayed at the meeting over at the annex, we had like 10 different boards that had updated pricing of what it would cost to build today. And these people that I've talked to, we traveled to pools, they tell me what their pool cost, and they were built 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Everybody's different, but the wide range of costs are in line with what we've been told. So I get that we are paying fees to someone to do this. I understand that we're talking about more than just the cost of the actual building itself, but it appears to me that we're not alone in that, and that every pool that we've visited has done the same thing. And mostly with companies like R.L. Turner. I mean, there are other companies out there that do this as well. It's not just R.L. Turner was the only one, but we felt like they were the most experienced in commercial outdoor pools from the three groups we entered. So we just have to stop looking at it as a hole in the ground and a body of water, and that we want something. It's not that we just want it, but we need it. We need it to go.
That's what we're saying. We're saying list what you want, not necessarily a square hole in the ground. List what you want, what amenities you want. List your slides and your diving pool as extras, and let's have some contractors actually bid on the project. I think there's a lot of costs you're paying here that we don't need to pay. The 18% of the final bid price, what's that? You know how much that is on $4 million? What, $600,000 to have somebody say, oh, you're doing it right?
So every community that we went to see in the state were not as smart as us and paid more than we're the smart ones, and we know better than all of those communities that we went and visited.
There's no reason for that. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. What I'm saying is, again, you don't have to follow suit. You don't have to spend more than you you can afford. You don't have to keep raising taxes. I sat right there and listened to people every time there's Peter Bowl meeting that are being taxed out of their home. Elderly people that don't need more taxes. I'm not against building a pool. I'm against building a pool you can't afford, period. And if you have to do it in stages, then do it in stages, but build what you can afford.
We know
to
if it's
build.
built in stages, it will not be built in
You
stages.
don't know that,
Yes,
because you're smarter than the people in your future. Go back to your statement just now.
it shouldn't be the future. How long apart are you thinking a stage is gonna be?
I don't
5,
know.
10 years?
I don't know when you can afford to build.
We can afford to build it now.
It doesn't appear so without raising taxes.
That's the question. Can we afford it? And do the annex and
If you
take
can
care of our
afford to build
elderly.
it, then why don't add more taxes? I don't afford building a pool that we can afford to build.
Yes, sir.
I've brought it up before, and I guess you're talking about investing in the community with this pool. Show me where the pool has ever broke even, let alone turn a profit in its existence. It has always been subsidized out of the Parks Department budget.
And that will happen again if we don't build it that's sufficient.
It's gonna happen
No,
again.
Teresa has funding. She has pool dollars from other pools that
Right.
are, very good example, Aurora, that you just went to.
Right.
They actually,
So now then you're upkeeping a pool that you just built.
That was not.
No, but I'm talking to you guys. She can come back at me with a rebuttal here in a second. I'm not saying she can't. I'm saying you're talking about a pool that has never broke even and had to be subsidized. Now you want to build a bigger, more expensive pool that's going to cost more for upkeep. You're talking about ball diamonds, the Kohler ball diamonds that need upgraded and things done. Now you're taking money away from them ball diamonds that could be used for upkeep there to upkeep a more expensive pool. It still comes out of Parks Department budget, man. Does it not? It's yes or no answer. Does it come out of Parks Department budget?
What, operating costs?
For the pool and the ball diamonds, does it come out of Parks Department
So
budget?
I'm sorry, you don't believe the pool can bring in money, but that's not what the numbers are showing us in our research.
It has
That was
never,
back
it
in
has never
right,
broke
But
even.
today's a different day, and that was a different time. It was built in 1959. In my opinion, this discussion should have gone on 20 years ago when the attendance dropped in half. Someone should have said, red flag, what's going on? Let's start planning to fix this problem. So it's a problem that's been pushed down the road. And so here we are with our costs. If we would have built this pool 10 years ago, it would have been a quarter of what it's going to cost today. But I'm also realistic, and we've looked at many, many facilities and what they cost. And so I'm realistic. If we have a general architect come and build this project, we have no support on this project. We've heard from other pools that aren't happy with their contractors, and now they're going to have to go back and spend more money to repair the things the contractors did not do. So we need to be very careful, if we are going to invest this money, to have someone that is of quality, so we know that we're not going to have to pay for the mistakes of trying to shortchange the project to begin with.
Okay, now explain to me, I've got a general idea about these tax abatement monies coming in. The way I understand it, it doesn't go through the state, that it's used by the county council to pay bills and things with and projects with and everything. So where's the breakdown of the tax abatement monies you guys get? Where you
Well,
allow?
we start getting it yet, sir. That'll be 2026. The last abatement we did,
Okay,
which it'll bring in 329,000 to 380,000,
okay.
depending on.
And where's
size
that
of the
money going to be
project.
used at?
It'll go into, it can be used for, we'll have to write an ordinance on it, but it can be used for anything general for the county. It can
Which
be
would
used for
include the
any
pool as well.
maintenance. It can be used any place in the county.
Okay, so rather,
And some of it you might have the schools come in and out, and some of it too.
right,
Because it's the economic impact fee is what it
okay.
is what it amounts to.
So there's monies becoming available.
It'll be 2026.
Okay.
Yes. And there might be some more down the road. There's a few things. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, and I was gonna say, the other aspect of the whole project is the timeline that's on the actual $3 million that we have.
Mhm.
And that was one of the reasons we went to DOT, we went through the process of design and bid, you know, if we continuously had to go back, that adds to the entire project.
And I understand that. That's why I was asking when that money would be
No, I
available.
understand.
Okay.
And also, I would note too, some of discussion that we had about paying off the highway garage was because of that money that's coming in, from these economic development projects, not including anything from last night's discussion of the solar, but the other projects. So while we might have some of that money coming in that could be used for other projects, we still have to pay off the new highway garage.
And that's why I was asking.
Some of that money would be directly funded.
We still don't have a direct plan on where that's coming from.
Well, you don't know what it is.
Correct. We still don't know what it is, and we don't know what fund it's gonna come from. So when we start talking about using edit money to pay for the pool, can we? Or is the highway garage going to take that? Are we doing payments on the garage? Are we paying it off? What are we doing? Again, multiple conversations about spending money kind of being handled separately, and they need to be done all at the same time. So if we look at the entire expenditure list and the entire amount of money we have either now or in the future to do it.
Okay, this was a discussion on taxes. Anybody else got anything?
Yeah, we did, we adjusted Q cap.
Kim Cap was
To
raised.
gather $300,000 that we had planned to use at the annex for that project. I don't know if that, Tony, you were involved in it, I think.
Yeah.
It's in the budget.
So that's what, to answer the annex thing, I think we just gotta figure out how, if we go borrow that money and use that 300 as a payment over time, 10 years, that gets us a couple $1 million in interest.
Is there any chance of getting any more ARPA money for the annex? I mean, using any of that?
Well, we've got some money left, we haven't spent appropriated yet, but we're looking at some projects that we think we want to do, but we haven't, I don't know, there's probably right now somewhere between maybe $700,000 left in there that we haven't appropriated. We're trying to be very diligent about where we use that to have the most impact. But we got to do it by the end of this year, so, we're kind of not under the gun, but we're kind of under the gun. So if we did have it, wouldn't be a tremendous amount.
Bunch, yeah.
I mean, $500,000 still a lot of money, but
Yeah.
we don't have a couple $1 million laying there to disperse out.
Do we have estimates on Coon Bridge and whether that fixed the shortfall that was discussed in 22 or 23? Because I know in one of your council sessions, there was a discussion.
Coon Bridge, we raised Coon Bridge to the max.
And that'll cover the shortfalls?
Yeah, but it won't cover the shortfalls, but it'll get it started back again.
So how do we cover the shortfalls? If we have projected shortfalls on Coon Bridge, how do we?
He'll just have to push those projects back.
You just have to push it back a little bit. We raised it to the max, but it stayed within the levy and it was taken out someplace else. But Coon Bridge I think it's estimated to bring in a little over $1 million this year. What it's estimated to do.
There's what, 8 or 10 bridges on the replacement list in the next 4 to 5 years?
Could be, I really don't, I don't know. I don't know, I know we got a big thing from the state, where they're paying for Bridge 141.
Yeah, there's the federal match, 75-25. Park Road project, we discussed previous that money is.
That would be part of the highway department too, correct, Mark? What do you get, 80% of it back when it's completed?
But if they don't have the money, and they're not here to obviously speak on it, where's that money come from? And what's that budget look like, and are they gonna be on track to cover all of that, or do we have to cover that in Coon Cap? Or through edit, or, I mean, there's $624,000 in edit too, that's not necessarily earmarked for anything that can go to projects also, but we have multiple projects to talk about.
Well, today we're here to talk about 2 taxes. The other projects, I'll be glad to have another meeting on, but right now, that was always on our agenda. And I know where you're coming from, and I understand that. We're gonna have to sit down.
I mean, we kind of been having this conversation for 3 or 4 months. And we still don't have really any movement on it. Not to be a real big pain in the butt. I mean, we've been talking about how we're going to pay for all of them and how it works in the entire budget for since October.
Well, I don't mean, there's only so much to go around. That's all we got. I mean, I'm not for raising taxes on nothing myself. I'll be straight up with you. And inflation affects government just like it affects everybody else.
Well, I'm going to propose yet again another committee between council and commissioners, prioritize the project list of things that are there, figure out what we need to prioritize first for funding, and then figure out what we're going to do from there with the money that's coming. I've talked about it a couple times, but I think that it needs to be.
Somebody needs to get some estimates from the Washington School Annex, so we know.
We can
what
start
heating,
with the very
cooling.
estimate at 2.3. That covered everything but the
Yeah,
road.
but I want to see it individualized.
We're at a point where we can put out bids here.
I mean, I'd like to see it itemized.
We're at a point here where I think we can put out a request for bids to get the roof addressed, get the HVAC addressed, get the windows addressed, and we can start there. I know we're at a point where I think we can probably do that request and figure out then exactly if we need to do a piecemeal, or if we need to go obtain a loan to be able to pay for that loan from the 300,000, the edit funds that were previously appropriated for. Yeah.
Yeah, because Virgin did break it down because they didn't want you to use in their estimates.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing
Yeah.
too. Anybody else, anything else on special purpose or
Well, I would
Food
hope,
beverage.
I would hope if we vote on the special purpose tax to lower that at our next meeting, we would hear some actual applause since everybody's, we can't lower taxes. So I'd like to hear some yes instead of some boos all the time. That would be nice. Yeah,
It'd be all right.
I think so. As far as the pool, there are some funding sources that I'm still working on. And I think, we've heard from, and I confirmed as I was walking in today, that the foundation might be open to doing a loan to us from foundation funds, which would be a win-win because that would put those interest payments back into our own community. So taking a look at some of those other funding issues, I think if we can come up with maybe even 1 to 1.5 million of our own, I think we can probably cover the rest of the cost of the pool without passing food and beverage tax. But I do agree with Kenny that we should continue to have that on the table potentially for future expenses because it's very silly not to keep that there.
Yeah. Is that something we would need to take action on next meeting?
Yes. Okay. Because you postponed it till next meeting. If you want to postpone it indefinitely, that's, it better not.
Okay.
Staff got anything else for us? I entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Bill seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed that?
So what's your, are you gonna postpone it or not?